This is Block 11, Reagan's Revolution, Part 1, Modern American Conservatism, with the section Austrian Economics or Supply-Side Economics. Now, there's a mistake in your notes I can't believe I made. Friedrich Hayek is on the left. There's no von in his name. The guy on the right is Ludwig von Mises, and they are kind of the founders and inventors of what's known as Austrian economics. Why Austrian economics? Because Hayek and von Mises were both Austrian. Surprise, surprise. In the modern world, Austrian economics are the most common intellectual response to Keynesian economics in the world today. Don't ask me which one is right. Don't ask me which one I support. I will tell you that there are brilliant people on both sides of this debate. I will tell you that people on both sides of this debate have won Nobel Prizes in economics. And I will tell you that if you ever become an economist, you will fall on one side or another of this spectrum. Now let's just review Keynesian economics for a moment. Keynesian economics is a demand-side economics. Consider supply and demand. That Keynesians believe in order to stimulate an economy, you stimulate demand. You make people want to demand more. You make people demand more stuff. That a government can stimulate demand by direct spending on the economy. If I give Bob $100, it will increase the demand for goods and services because Bob has an extra $100 to spend. Therefore, according to Keynes, more goods and services will be produced, improving the economy. Keynesians believe that government spending stimulates the economy. That's if you want to stimulate the economy, you stimulate the demand side of the economy. Austrian economics, on the other hand, is a supply-side economics. So if you see on your test supply-side economics, that's Austrian economics. That is the opposite of Keynes. Austrian economics says that if the government makes it easier for people to produce, if you stimulate the supply side of the equation, if you make it easier for people to produce stuff, economic activity will grow because those who are producing the stuff will have greater income and thus create more demand without government intervention. Think about it like this. If I am a producer, if I own a business, and I get to keep more of my money, okay, if it's easier for me to produce, a government makes it easier for me to produce, and how it does that is it allows me to keep more of my own money. Taxes go down. If I keep more of my money, then I can spend more with my money, or which stimulates demand, or I can increase the size, power, and wealth of my business, thus hiring more workers, paying them more money, and thus stimulating demand from that side of the equation. Supply-side economics says that you increase a supplier's ability to supply, and that in and of itself will stimulate demand for goods and services without having to artificially prop it up. Okay, and the way to grow the supply side of the economic equation is to make it easier for businesses to grow, easier for businesses to expand, easier for businesses to innovate, develop, hire more people. And the way that what government can do to do that is lower taxes and provide less and regular regulation. Lower taxes and less regulation make doing business cheaper. This allows more money to stay in the pockets of those who own businesses. And then the theory goes that if the people who own the businesses have more money, they will expand their operations, which create jobs, and spend more money in the rest of the economy, which will create more jobs as well. The idea is that if the guy on the top has more money, that money will trickle down to the rest of people in society. We're going to see that again, trickle-down economics, that if we allow the factory owner to keep more of his money, that money will trickle down to regular, ordinary people because he'll want to hire more people, he'll want to spend more money on his own, thus stimulating demand. The obvious response to this is that if you lower taxes too much, the government has a lot less money for the things that the government wants to do. And we all like government doing stuff. We want government not only to provide for a strong national defense, but we want government to pay, help us go to college, pay for old people's medical care. We want government to have roads and bridges and tunnels and the FBI and Social Security. That if you lower taxes, what you're going to get is government able to spend money on the poor and vulnerable people in society much less. That there'll be less money available for the people for whom need the government's help. That point was responded to by a guy by the name of Arthur Laffer. And there's Arthur Laffer, who was actually friends with my father-in-law. My wife remembers Art Laffer coming over to their house when she grew up in California. He worked at USC, where my father-in-law was a professor. They were both in the economics department. And my wife remembers Art Laffer coming over to their house when she was a kid. She said he was a bit of a stuck-up cold fish. It wasn't very nice, she remembers. But Art Laffer came up with this theory that, in fact, that even with lower tax rates, the amount of money that the government takes in will also increase, because the economic activity created by lower taxes will increase the total revenue, even though the percentages are lower. Let's take a simple example. If I make $100,000 and am taxed at a rate of 40%, I keep $60,000 and the government makes $40,000. But if my taxes go down to 20%, and those lower taxes allow me to grow my business to the point where I now make $300,000, even at a 20% tax rate, I keep $240,000, so I'm 4 times richer. I've gone from $60,000 to $240,000, but the government has gone from $40,000 to $60,000. That even tax rates are twice as low, the government has actually taken in more money. That is the philosophical belief behind why supply-side economics would not starve government out. And here's Laffer's curve. He says that if tax rates are zero, okay, so we have tax revenue on this axis, the amount of money that government takes in, and this axis, the x-axis, is the tax rate. Laffer says that if the tax rate is zero, obviously the government's going to take in $0. But he also says if the tax rate is 100%, the government will also take in $0. Because if you can't keep any of the money you earn, you won't bother to earn it. If you own a business where the government takes 100% of the money you make, you're not going to bother to be in business any longer. And this curve here is how much tax revenue you take in. Now, Laffer determined, his calculus here, that this is the point of highest growth. That if you want to create the most growth in the economy, you set your tax rate here. If you want to raise the most money possible, you set your tax percentage here. But after you reach that point, at about, looks like 30% or so, as government raises taxes, the amount of money they take in goes down and down and down because people are producing less and less and less because government is taking more and more and more. And if government takes more of what you earn, you have less incentive to go out and earn it. That is a fundamental look at Austrian or supply-side economics.